Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you guys how you can create an S3 bucket and upload images to it using Golang and React Native. So let's get started. But first I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and pretty much everything I learned about setting up the bucket I learned from this guy, Sam Meach-Ward, and this video called Upload Images Directly to S3 from Front End. So if you don't have an AWS account, go ahead and create one, but I've got one, so I'm just going to sign in. And once you're signed in, search for S3 up in the search bar, and then click on this, S3. Now here, go ahead and create a bucket. Create a unique bucket name. So I'm going to call this apartments -clone and see if that is actually available. Here we are just going to uncheck that, and that's going to mean that it's going to be public. And then go ahead and create the bucket. Now click into your bucket once it's made. Then go to permissions and create a new policy. So click edit, then go to policy generator. Select type, we want S3 bucket policy. Principal is going to be just a star here. For the actions, it's going to be get object. And for the resource name, there's this hint underneath, so I'm just going to copy that. And the bucket name is apartments-clone for me. And then here the key name is just going to be a star. Then click add statement and generate policy. Now we'll just copy this, close it, and then go back and paste it in here. Then we will save the changes. And now go down to this core section and then click edit. And we are going to add in this policy. So save those. Now go back to the search bar and search for IAM. And here we need to create a new policy. So create a policy. For the service, we are going to pick S3. For the actions, go to write, and then put object is what we want to select. Now let's go to resources. And here we want to specify an ARN, so add an ARN. The bucket name is apartments-clone. And the object name is just going to be any. So add that. Then here we'll click next, and then go to the next. And we need to give this a name. And in the video, he just gave it the same name as the bucket. So that's what I'm going to do. And let's create this policy. So here it is. Now we need to go and create a user. So add users here. Here we're just going to give it the same name as the bucket, so apartments-clone. And we need programmatic access. Then we'll attach an existing policy, which is apartments-clone. Then here we'll just go to next, next, and create the user. And here you'll get an access key ID and a secret access key. So what you need to do is add these to the .env file of your Go project. So I added those keys under these variable names. And with that done, I'm going to go and create a new file under my storage package. I'm going to call it S3. And here I'm going to specify the package, which is storage. Then here I'm going to create a variable for an S3 client, and we're going to be getting this error because it doesn't know where S3 is coming from. So let's go to their documentation and get these different packages. And make sure to look at their V2 documentation for their Go SDK. So here I'm just going to get that first package. Then I'm going to get this config. And now I'm going to go and retrieve this package. And now we can import that. Now we need to add some imports. So import credentials, config, OS, log, and context. And then we'll create a function called Initialize S3. And then we need to get our access key and secret key. Then create a custom provider calling the new static credentials provider, and then passing in our keys. And then we'll create a config, passing in the custom provider and the region. And if there's an error, we'll log that. And at the end, we will assign our S3 client. So next, we need to create a function to actually upload images. So in order to do that, we need to get the URL of our bucket. So I like to go back to the S3 bucket and upload an image, and then from there you can actually see the URL of where that image is at. So that's what I'm going to do here. So here, just go there. Now upload, add files. Let's just do this. And let's upload. And now we can click on this and see where it is located. And here is the object URL. So let's just copy this. And here we need to create a new variable. We'll call it the bucket URL. And it's going to be this string. And we can just get rid of this. Now let's create a variable for our bucket name. And it's just going to be this. So I'm just going to cut this here and then add it here. Now we need to add some imports. So import encoding / base64, FMT, strings, and manager. And then let's create a function called upload base64 image. It's going to take a base64 image source, which is a string, and a name, which will be a string, and it will return a map, which contains a string. So first we need to get the index of the comma within this base64 image source. And then we will create a new decoder, and then we'll create a new URL for where we actually want to store this image. And then we'll upload the image, passing in the address to the bucket name for the bucket. For the key, it will be the address to the name. And then for the body, it will be our decoder. And if we get an error during this, I'm just going to print it to the console saying an error happened. And then we will create a URL map and assign URL equal to our URL and return that URL map. And I'm just going to fix my spelling here. So now I'm going to create a new route to actually use this function, and for me, I'm creating a manager within my application. So let's go to our routes and then create a manager file. And the package for this is going to be routes. And before I can get started on this, I need to go create a manager model for my database. So here, I'm going to create this. It's going to be called manager.go. The package is going to be models. We need to import GORM, and then this is what the struct is going to look like. And I'm actually going to need to go into my users here and add the manager. And we can do that creating a one-to-many relationship, passing in the manager as a manager array. So we'll save that and then go back to my route here and start to build out a new route. So this first route that I'm going to create is called create manager, and I'm going to need to import iris here. It's going to take an input that looks a little something like this, where we have a name that needs to be required, an email that's needing to be required, and a user ID which needs to be required. Then phone number, website, and image are going to be optional strings. And then we'll put a max size on the body of the request, and that's going to be 10 megabytes. Then we'll read the body of the request and handle any validation errors. Next, we'll upload the image to our S3 instance. And what I'm doing here is separating each user's images into their own folders. So each user's ID is going to be unique. So that's going to be the folder name. And for the name of the image, that's just going to be the name of the manager. So typically that would be the name of the property management business. And with that uploaded, I'm now going to save it to my database. And for the image here, I'm just going to pass in the URL to this S3 instance. And here at the end, I'm just going to send the user the manager. So with this set up, let's go into our main file. And here, where we're initializing our DB, we also need to initialize the S3 instance. And I need to create a new party here. So I'm going to call it manager. And that's going to be equal to app.party/API/manager. And then here we'll create a new post endpoint. And it's going to be called create. And we'll pass in routes.createManager. So with this route added, I'm going to go into my database file. And I'm going to add the manager model into my migrations. So here we will create a new model for manager. And now I'm going to start up first I need to save this, and now I'm going to start the server. And here we can see that our create manager route was created. I'm going to go to my database and make sure that the manager table was created. And here you can see that we have the managers now, whereas before we only had users for our tables. So with our server started, let's head to our application code. And I'm going to add that endpoint to my endpoints. So that's in my constants file. And here I just need to create a new variable called manager. And then create that endpoint. And then down below in our endpoints, I'm going to create the create manager endpoint. Now I'm going to navigate to the create manager screen. And here where I am calling this function create manager, I'm going to replace this with a mutation. So I'm going to call that const create manager, but it is going to be a mutation, and we need to call the use mutation hook, which I need to import from React Query. And we will pass it a function, which will return a post request to that create manager endpoint. So endpoints.manager or create manager. And for the body, we need to get some values. So for this mutation, we need to pass in some values. And here I'm using this format component, which has all of these values. So here in the onSubmit function, I'm just going to get all of these and paste them here. And here for the body of this post request, we need to specify the user ID, name, email, phone number, website, and image. And here for this user, I need to import something. So let me fix this Axios import. And then I need to import this use auth hook and get my user from there. So const user equals use auth. And we'll save that. And in addition to this, let's handle the on success and on error states. So on success will just be a function, same with on error. And then here we'll say if create manager dot is loading, we need to return a loading component. And then down here we'll call create manager dot mutate, passing in values. Now if we get an error, we'll just specify to the user that we were unable to create the manager. And for on success here, let's just get the data and then log it to the console. And let's demonstrate actually creating a manager and adding that image to your S3 bucket. So here for this manager, we'll just create a new management name called North Star Properties. Here for this email, we'll say ns@gmail.com. Website we don't need, phone we don't need, add an image, and here you got this boilerplate image, and here we'll crop this image, and then let's create the account. And let's go to our console here. So this image should now be in our S3 bucket. So here for my apartments clone bucket, we can see this new folder with 49, and then we have North Star Properties. And if we click on this, we'll get all the data about it. And here we can see this, it's gonna download an image, but within our app, we can actually display this through an image component. And here you can see the image that we just uploaded. So that is how you can upload an image to your S3 bucket using Golang and React Native. So if that's all you came for, I hope that you found this video useful, but this video still needs to continue because I've got some more building to do. So really the rest of the building has to do with this create property manager account and the add property screen. So right now we have a manager created, but as you can see, we're still on the create property manager account screen. So that's an issue. And to fix this issue, we're going to go into our server and add a new route. So here under manager.go and the routes package, let's create a new function. This function is going to be called get managers by user ID. We're going to pass in the user ID through the parameters of the URL. So we need to get those, and then we need to look up the different managers in our database where their user ID is equal to the passed in ID, and then we will return those managers. And now navigate to main.go, and here we will register that route. Now go back to your application code and go to your endpoints, then add that one. Here we are going to call it get managers by user ID, and for the specific endpoint it's just going to be this user ID. Now head to add property screen and import use query, and import Axios as well. And then here where we're saying const manager equals false, let's create a new query where the key is going to be manager, and if a user is present, then we need to make a GET request to that get managers by user ID endpoint. So let's import our endpoints here. And then for the cache time, I'm setting that to a full day. And then here where we're saying if no manager exists, we need to change this. So we'll say that if the length of the data is equal to 0 or there is no data, then we need to render out that screen. Otherwise, we will show them the add a property. And if the manager query is loading, we need to render our loading component. So let's import that as well. And then let's go restart our server. cancel that, clear, and then go run main.go. And with our server up and running, we should be able to check this out. So now we get hit with the add a property screen. But there is one more change that we need to do, and that is we need to add a refetch for this manager query to our create manager screen. So I'm just going to pass that into the create manager screen. I'm going to say refetch managers. It's going to be a function that's void. And whenever we get a successful mutation here, I'm going to say if refetch managers, then refetch managers. And this is going to be optional here. So here on the create manager screen, within add property screen, let's pass in manager query.refetch for the refetch managers prop. So manager query.refetch. And I'm going to go into my database here and then query this managers table. So query tool. We are going to select everything from managers. And we are going to delete from managers where user underscore ID is equal to 49. And this is just my personal ID, but yours is probably different. So we'll run that with F5, and then we'll select everything again just to make sure they deleted, even though it said they deleted. Okay, so that's all good. And now let's go and test it out. So we should have nothing now. So add a property, okay. And here we'll just say ns@gmail.com. No website, let's add that image again. We'll crop it and then create the account. And here we get hit with the add a property screen. And then just to demonstrate that we actually have a manager and we can actually display that image, let's just import image here. So import image from React Native. So import image from React Native. And then here we'll have the image with the source. URI is going to be manager query .data managers sub0 image. The style is just going to be equal to a height of 250 and a width of 250. And let's see if that works. And there you go. You can see the image, and that's actually being hosted on our S3 bucket. So I hope that you guys found this video useful, and thank you very much for watching.